Welcome back at BartlikBartlik YouTube channel for more construction basic knowledge. And please, if you haven't subscribed, please stay tuned by subscribing, such that when we upload a new video on construction basic knowledge, you will be notified. I hope you are doing well wherever you are. And today's video, we are going to discuss about underpinning. And please pay attention and enjoy the video. Subscribe. Let us go straight to it, and we will start by defining what is underpinning. So underpinning is a process used to repair, strengthen, or increase the depth of an existing foundation by lowering the footing to allow it to rest on more supportive soil. Let me repeat again, or let me just do a recap. I've said that underpinning is a process used to repair, strengthen, or increase the depth of an existing foundation by lowering the footing to allow it to rest on more supportive soil. So that is the meaning of underpinning. Underpinning refers to the practice of fortifying the base of already existing house, buildings, or other structures. Underpinning is a useful method that may be used either during or after the building process in order to strengthen the foundation. And in most cases, an existing structure's foundation and the ground's condition will need to be improved in order for it to be able to support a greater weight. So the process of underpinning in construction is one that must be carried out with a great deal of caution and under the close supervision of an experienced professional, or let's say experienced engineers. So the structure's vulnerability to failure is increased if the strategy, techniques, and underpinning methods that are being used are incorrect. Let us discuss the reasons for underpinning. Why do we do underpinning? Or what are the reasons that will make someone do underpinning? So the requirement for underpinning arises from a variety of factors, some of which are detailed in what we are going to discuss today. And number one is that if the original base was weak or unsteady, if the original base was weak or unsteady, that's one of the reasons why underpinning will be required. And if I may elaborate on that topic, is that there must be reinforcement added to the base when the underlying foundation cannot support the weight of the building. So it is also possible to strengthen the soil under the base when there are uneven settlements, that is caused by the poor construction of the foundations. So for now, we are now discussing reasons for underpinning, or the reasons why underpinning is done. And I've said reason number one is when the original base was weak or unsteady. That is one of the reasons why we could do underpinning, if the original base was weak or it was unsteady. And then reason number two for carrying out underpinning is when there is a shift in how the structure is being used. When there is a shift in how the structure is being used. So there is the potential to alter the functions that can be performed in each of the structures. When these adjustments result in an increase in the loads that are being imposed, underpinning is performed as a foundation improvement. So that is reason number two why we can carry out underpinning. I've said it is when there is a shift in how the structure is being used. That is reason number two. And in elaborating on this point is that there is the potential to alter the function that can be performed in each of the structures. And when these adjustments result in an increase in the loads that are being imposed, on the building, underpinning is performed as a foundation improvement. So those are two reasons, and I will mention the third reason. The third reason is modification of the subsoil under the building. If we want to modify the subsoil under the building, underpinning will be required. And I would elaborate on this point by saying that when there are soils that are deformable, soils that are decaying, and so on, the characteristics of these soils change throughout time. And as a direct outcome of this, the foundations could shift. Under these circumstances, work to ameliorate the soil condition is carried out. So that is point number three, or reason number three why underpinning could be required, is that modification of the soil under the building. When we want to modify the soil under the building, then the process of underpinning will be required. And I have elaborated this point by saying that when there are soils that are deformable, soils that are decaying, and so on, the characteristics of these soils change throughout time. So as a direct outcome of this, the foundation could shift. Under these circumstances, work to ameliorate the soil condition is carried out, and this is a process of underpinning. So another point, or another reason that could lead to underpinning process is when we have poor ground conditions. When we have poor ground conditions, and when we have poor ground conditions, the assessment of soil design factors like load carrying capacity, frictional force, and many others might be off if the improper features of soil are taken into account, or if the soils are not properly classified. So it is possible that this will cause the structure to settle unevenly even while it's still being built. So that is another reason why we could require underpinning. I've said when we have poor ground conditions, and this assessment of soil design factors like load carrying capacity, frictional forces, and etc. might be off if the improper features of soil are taken into account, or if the soils are not properly classified. So it is possible that this will cause the structure to settle unevenly and even while it is still being built. So that is another reason why we would require underpinning process. And then another reason is, or another reason could be the digging of an adjacent structure. Digging of an adjacent structure, or excavation of an adjacent structure. Maybe you want to do a structure adjacent to an already constructed building, then it might affect that already existing building. So we might require the activity of underpinning. So the excavation has a considerable effect on the structure that is already there. So the effect could be avoided or reduced if the shoring were done correctly. Nevertheless, the way of underpinning that is deemed to be the most suitable should be used. So that is another reason that could make us do underpinning, is when we are digging, or rather when we are doing an excavation for that is next to an adjacent structure. And then as we move on, another reason is if you want to boost the foundation load capacity. If you want to boost the foundation's load capacity, then you will require to do underpinning. So it is necessary to apply appropriate underpinning techniques when the loads transmitted to the foundation must be increased. There are a variety of underlying techniques that may be used according to the circumstances, such as when an additional floor must be added to an existing building rather than a whole new one being built. Then for you to strengthen the foundations, you will require to do underpinning. So that is another reason, and I've said that boosting the foundation load capacity, it is necessary to apply appropriate underpinning techniques when the loads transmitted to the foundation must be increased. So there are a variety of underlying techniques that may be used, that is according to the circumstances, such as when an additional floor must be added to an existing building rather than a whole new one being built. So those are the reasons why we could do underpinning, or those are the reasons why might cause the underpinning to be done. And let me just do a recap again for the reasons why we can do underpinning, and I'll just do a recap by mentioning them without elaborating. And I've said the reasons why we could do underpinning. Number one is by the original base, if the original base was weak or unsteady. Reason number two is that when there is a shift in how the structure is being used. When there is a shift in how the structure is being used. And then reason number four is that when there is when modification of the subsoil under the building. When there is a modification of the subsoil under the building, this will require underpinning. Another reason that we have said that will require underpinning is if we have poor ground conditions. if we have poor ground conditions. And then another reason that could cause underpinning, or that could make underpinning to be done, is when we are excavating to an adjacent structure. The excavation has a considerable effect on the structure that is already there. So when digging of an adjacent structure, this could also lead to have underpinning. And also the last reason that would make us do underpinning is when we want to boost the foundation load capacity. When foundation load capacity has to be boosted, this will require underpinning process. Stay tuned by subscribing. I hope you are enjoying the video. So we have defined what is underpinning, and we have also stated the reasons that could lead to do underpinning. The next point that I would like to elaborate, or I would like us to know or to understand, is methods of underpinning. So this underpinning process, we have methods of doing this underpinning process. We have methods of doing the underpinning process, and there are few different approaches that may be used when underpinning foundations. However, the following 4 approaches that I'm going to mention are the most common ones. So I'm going to mention the 4 common methods of underpinning. So number 1, we have the mass pouring underpinning method. Mass pouring underpinning method, and I'm going to elaborate on this method. So this underpinning method is used where a lot of digging is not required. A concrete foundation is poured to increase the strength of this base. So this is a very easy underpinning method, and it doesn't require heavy machinery. Also, it is a very cost-effective method. And from the pictures beside us, you can see what we mean by mass pouring underpinning method. And let me just do a recap of elaborating on this method. I've said that this underpinning method is used where a lot of digging is not required. So a concrete foundation is poured to increase the strength of the base. This is a very easy underpinning method and doesn't require heavy machinery. So that is one of the methods that is used to do underpinning, mass pouring underpinning method. And then method number 2 is beam and base underpinning method. Beam and base underpinning method. In this method, a traditional mass concrete base is used and is supported by beams so that the foundation is strong. In this kind of underpinning, the foundation weight will be taken care of by the beam that will be either constructed above or below the concrete base. And again, from the pictures you can see what we mean by beam and base underpinning method. Let me repeat again. I've said that in this method, a traditional mass concrete base is used and is supported by beams so that the foundation is strong. In this kind of underpinning, the foundation's weight will be taken care of by the beam that will be either constructed above or below the concrete base. And then we have the pit underpinning method. Pit underpinning method. The pit technique of underpinning is often performed by methodically digging the area in phases. After that, needles that have bearing panels attached to them are placed through all of these perforations and stabilized by jacks. After this, excavation will begin, first to a depth equal to the level of the existing foundation, and later to the desired depth. That is what we mean by pit underpinning method. And then we have pile underpinning method. Pile underpinning method. So in some circumstances, such as those involving swampy areas, severe loads on already existing structures, and loads that need to be shifted to a deeper depth, the pit approach may not be feasible or cost effective. So using a pile technique might be used in these instances. The piles are positioned on each side of the current wall in this way. So the piles caps act as needles and are inserted into the wall. As a result, the pressure is taken off the current wall. So this approach is very helpful in clay soils, as well as locations that are prone to waterlogging and walls that are required to handle large loads. So pile driving occurs concurrently with the construction of light buildings, followed by the installation of clamps or cantilever needles. Alright, and then we have another method of underpinning called pier underpinning method. Pier underpinning method. So when dealing with the dry terrain, this strategy is often the one that is used. So this is a straightforward approach to the process of underpinning. The placement of piers beneath the foundation of buildings is done via the approach trenches as part of this process. After the holes have been filled with concrete, the compacting process may begin so that the weight can be transferred to a new pier. And then lastly, we have the chemical underpinning method. We also have chemical underpinning method. And chemicals are used in this technique for the purpose of consolidating the foundation dirt under the foundations. So perforated pipes serve as a mortar that moves in an angled direction, and the slopes are designed such a way that the whole region is under the current footing, corners beneath the section that was reinforced. So injecting a sodium silicate in a mix of water via the pipes is the next step once the pipes have been placed. The procedure involves 2 injections. Calcium chloride is pumped via the pipes while they are being removed. These 2 compounds react chemically, leading to soil consolidation as a byproduct. If you have granular soil, this technique will work for you. So that is all about underpinning, and that is what I can talk about underpinning. So I have defined what underpinning is, and I have stated the reasons why underpinning could be done, and we have talked about the methods of underpinning. So I'll just do a recap so that for the benefit of those maybe who did not get it clearly. And underpinning refers to the practice of fortifying the base of already existing houses or buildings or structures. And underpinning is a useful method that may be used either during or after the building process in order to strengthen the foundation. And in most cases, an existing structure foundation and the ground's condition will need to be improved in order for it to be able to support greater weight. So the process of underpinning in construction is one that must be carried out with a great deal of caution and under the close supervision of experienced professional. The structure's vulnerability to failure is increased if the strategy of the underpinning or the techniques of the underpinning methods are incorrect. And then if I may do a recap of reasons for underpinning, I've said we do underpinning if the original base was weak or unsteady. We also do underpinning if there is a shift in how the structure is being used. We might do underpinning if modification of the subsoil under the building is required. If the modification of the subsoil under the building is required. We may also do underpinning if we have poor ground conditions. We may also be required to do underpinning if the digging of an adjacent structure is being done, or excavation to an adjacent structure might require us to do underpinning. Another reason of why we may do underpinning is if we want to boost the foundation load capacity. So those are the reasons of why we could do underpinning. And a recap of the methods of underpinning: I've said we have mass pouring underpinning method, we have beam and base underpinning method, we have pit underpinning method, we have pile underpinning method, and then we have lastly the pier underpinning method, and last but not the least, we have the chemical underpinning methods. So that is all about underpinning, and I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I hope you have understood what we mean by underpinning and the reasons why we could do underpinning and the methods of doing underpinning. Thank you, and please don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and comment.